So we must do two things, two great things together, to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. We've been looking at the first two tones, first of all in the first record of creation and then in the second record of creation. We had finished the tone of mind and were beginning the tone of spirit, and had that instance come up of the creation, or the forming rather, of Adam. Adam being formed of the dust of the ground. And as I was preparing for this class, I had recalled very, with a great deal of affection, the fact that about 10 years ago or so, I had taken this subject, I think in Florida, with a smaller group, and was feeling my way with it at that time, as I am now. But as I started this time again through the second record of creation, I felt something that kept coming up, and it reminded me that I had had the similar experience 10 years ago. And this is, I think, a terrific thing. Because what one feels, if you think about it, is that the second record seems to be a depiction of a certain fundamental methodology, a certain fundamental classical methodology. And that methodology we could call atomism, or reductionism. It's all to do with parts, with pieces, with disjointedness, with taking the pieces and trying to put them together, and we'll see in which way as we go along. While the first record of creation hints to something quite different. It hints to another method, the method of holism. And there we would see that it's all to do with the whole, and coming out from the whole, with the systems approach, with a scientific approach. You have there the continual awareness of the connectedness of everything, the nestedness of everything. And so it is as though the second record, as though love would say to us with that second record, are you sure that you want to start, that you want to take the standpoint of parts, of the parts, of bits and pieces? And it all starts, you know, with that mist. What is a mist? It's that particle. They're particles, aren't they? Droplets of water, water particles, dust particles. Man is a part. Man is brought forth. How is he brought forth? By gathering up the dust and mixing it with the water, you see, and creating a mud man that is incomplete, a man that feels that he's only a part, so he looks for his wholeness in other parts, looks at all the other parts, we'll see, cannot find his wholeness, and so takes a part out of himself, which would be a part of a part, right? And woman brings forth woman, and woman is a part. And so it is parts and pieces all the way through. Later you find out that when they discover their own nakedness, that they sew together fig leaves. So they gather all the fig leaves and they sew them together to try to make something whole for themselves. And this comes up again and again in the story, that it's the method of atomism, ADAM or ATOM, whichever you prefer. It's the same stuff. It's reductionism, beginning with the dust of the ground, as we said, and the conglomerating and sticking together of those parts, building one's sense of man from this. And wherever you find this overemphasized in the world, in the sciences, this sense of reductionism, you find a building of the sense of man from that standpoint. You see that? Whether it's in physics or psychology or in medicine or whatever it is, whenever you have a standpoint that is working from the parts and trying to bring all those parts together to make a whole, or focusing only on a part, specializing. You see, over-specialization is what you get. When specialization is overemphasized, then you get not the man of the first record of creation, but you get some aspect of the Adam man. So, building one's sense of man on that basis, inspecting every part, every particle, putting parts under the microscope so that parts are in the focus. And that this, now we will see in the second great stage of the second record, leads to the knowledge of good and evil. It leads to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. As when you have parts and you have detached them or taken them out of the context of the whole, you know, love always has to do with context, with leaving something, anything, everything in its context. But when you take something out of the context of the whole and you begin to look at it, to focus on it under the microscope, then you begin to attribute something to that. Oh, this part is good. This part is bad. This part is evil. We need this part, but here's a part we don't need. Huh? Is this true? We'll see if it's true. Here's a particle, here's a piece of nature that we need, here's a piece that we don't need. Someone on the other coast said cockroaches have to go. Why do we need ticks and fleas? See? Do we really need this? Do we really need that? So man begins to evaluate what is worth, what is of worth, what isn't of worth. These are spirit. These are all spirit things. It's an ordering. It's has to do very much with an ordering principle, with a discriminatory sense within us. Which method do we use? The method of holism or the method of atomism? Because when you use the method of atomism or reductionism, then you begin to attribute to those parts whether they are good or evil, and you get the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Excuse me, but also when you do that, when you work on parts, I can only think of medicine right now as an example, but you become so focused so they only know how one part of something works and you don't know how the other part is, so you're operating out of ignorance. So when something comes up, you don't have a comprehension of the whole, so you can't even deal with the problem because you're so isolated in what your knowledge is and in what you're looking at.
Yes, yes, yeah. This has been a big problem in medicine, hasn't it? And the specialists and working with a single individual, you may have many specialists. Someone working knows about the heart, and someone else knows about the lungs, and somebody else about the vertebrae, the bones, and so forth. And none of them speak to each other. They don't talk. This is true. They don't talk. Only, I think, today there is more of a tendency towards the holistic approach, holistic medicine. This is the light in the system. See? It's the light. There's light in every one of these systems. There's the light of the first record. The light of the holistic approach is breaking through. So, will we take that standpoint or the standpoint of the whole? Think of how the first record exemplifies the standpoint, the methodology of the whole. Where does that first record come from? It comes out from the infinite one, God. Didn't we see that? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It comes out from the infinite one. Then we saw that it was as and through divine science, you see, as a fourfold movement of that one, never leaving the one. It was the movement of the oneness of the one. And we even saw that Mrs. Eddy called it the veritable unity of God and man and the universe. You hear the unity? It's not the disrupting that you separate God and man and the universe. It's the veritable unity of God and man and the universe. And that one then, as it descends, becomes a threefold one. It becomes a threefold Trinity, not three persons in one, but a Trinity in unity, life, truth, and love. Never was split up, never could be split up. It's the one at a further level of expression. And that Trinity in unity brings forth the 7 days of creation and the fourfold calculus within which those 7 lie. And there is never a splitting up, never a breaking up in that. It's an absolutely exquisite picture of wholeness, of holism. So I love that, and we will see that coming in, that touches of that now with these flashes of light. We're going to get right here in the tone of spirit in the second record, the breaking in now of the tree of life, the breaking in of the river, the one river with 4 heads. Beautiful, beautiful symbols. But in the sciences, you see that you feel that light coming into the sciences, into the systems of the sciences, the light of holism, the light of complexity, that the classical view begins to go out. The classical view of physics is the illusion of a particle, the illusion that there is a particle that comes from looking at through a classical framework of reference. That when you look through that classical framework, you see things, you see parts, you see particles and the putting together of parts to make a whole. And they say, your David Bohm. What does David Bohm say? Something wonderful. He says the current effort, he criticizes really the current effort of quantum theorists to achieve a grand unification theory, because he believes the pursuit of the ultimate particle, which is their method, to pursue the ultimate particle, the ultimate quantum, or the ultimate force, makes a fundamental error. It assumes that the universe is made up of parts. By pursuing nature as if she were made of parts, scientists have found parts. You see, the glasses that you put on, the consciousness that you put on, determines what you see. No ultimate, Bohm says, no ultimate or grandfather part will be discovered, only more and more parts. Parts which keep elusively dissolving into themselves. Mm-hmm. And so the other side is, or one tendency, one great movement is away from parts and towards fields. A field, to work with fields. You know that we've talked about the categories, haven't we, in the past, as fields, the fields of the seven, the fields of the four. It's instead of feeling that mind is a part, or that mind is an atom, and that you add that atom, you line that up next to the atom called spirit, or next to the part called soul, or whatever, to reason in terms of fields, I think, is just a way to break out of that and to see that a field would mean that something has a value at every point. If we want to say at every point in time and space, if they're talking about fields of physics, then such a field would be present at every place in time and space. It exists everywhere at the same time. You can have many fields present all at once. All are present at once. And so this is beginning to break out of that particulate standpoint, breaking out of the attempt to search for nature's building blocks, the parts and forces that make up nature, which in one sense is all right. You see, what is the ideal would be to have a balance between working with the so-called parts, but in balance with the holism, in which case you would never really think in terms of parts. You would always, going in the direction of a part would be going in the direction of seeing the wholeness of a part so-called, to see that a part is a whole, or a holon, as they sometimes refer to them, the holism of every so-called part. So you know that they search for these ultimate particles, quarks and mesons and gluons, and finally, don't they have the God particle that they're looking for, that they think is the ultimate particle? It's analyzing reality into constituent parts and then reassembling those parts in accord to our desires, our needs. And this is what you see today, and you brought this up earlier in the development of the subject, it came up, and I was glad it did, because and now we can see the place value of it, that this kind of thing is what is going on in a certain measure in the current biotechnology evolution. The gene splicing, cloning, manipulating genes, creating things, creating living things that have never been before, redesigning, therefore, existing life forms, putting the part of one biological form into another biological form, generating new ones, populating the earth with new forms of creation, and intervening really in our own evolution. Well, we just have to keep in mind that there is some light there, that there is some light there, that there is some good there, isn't there? It's not that we want to throw the baby out with the bath water, that we want to throw the whole thing out, but the balance, to keep the balance in it, you see. Technology is at a point today where it can take on its worst sense. And it is at a point where it can take on its highest sense. Taking on its negative aspect would be that technology would take nature as its object and would begin to do what it wants with that object. Subject and object too, not one. It's nature becoming our object, where we take it as though we could stand outside of it, right? And we manipulate it and we change it into what we think. It's a playing God, really. It's a being God, playing with it and having designed or thought out what we feel would be the best thing, or in other cases, what would be the worst thing, the mad scientist approach. So the reductionist standpoint is treating each system as mechanical, as made of parts, as though those parts can be isolated and compartmentalized, and this is disrupting the integrity of the whole, the interconnectedness of the whole, the web-workness of the whole. That's the part thinking. And over and against that come in these beautiful sciences of holism, the science of complexity, the science of chaos, the holistic view coming into every science and every field, which is the tendency, the desire to synthesize each discipline's sense of reality into constituent wholes. This, I think, is a great light coming into the sciences. So when we talk about the sciences, we don't talk about them as though they were a cause, but they are the effect of something, aren't they? They are the effect of the working of the true creation, the true record of creation, the effect of the working of the calculus on consciousness, the effect of the leavening and the lifting up and the fluctuating, the perturbating of any system that is not far from equilibrium, but that is near equilibrium. The light is coming into every system. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so the sciences of holism are like a reflection of that, emphasizing the interrelationships and everything, emphasizing our oneness with nature. You know, you have these movements that are emphasizing that we are one with nature, one with the environment, that we have a place of responsibility within our environment, that there's an interdependency between everything, that subject and object therefore are one, that you can't divide them, that there is feedback in nature, that there's a continual feedback, that nature is non-linear, not linear but non-linear, and this is the new standpoint that is coming in. So you see, the reductionist view is the drive to get to the bottom of things, the drive to find the absolute part, which may be rightly seen, may be rightly incorporated into a holistic view if it is kept in balance, when it is seen in balance. Because we know that we have a tendency within ourselves, and we must, because this belongs to analysis, to a right sense of analysis, to pursue the so-called parts. We pursue in our studies, we want to know, for instance, what is mind? And when we ask the question, what is mind, we get the answer, intelligence, perhaps. Then we say, well, what is intelligence? Then we begin to see what intelligence is. And so there is an analyzing within the scientist, a right sense of analyzing within the scientist, but it is kept in balance with the synthesis, with it never leaving the standpoint, never forgetting the fact that every part, no matter what we call that part mind. Mind is the whole. Mind is the whole. And in no other science do we see that more than in the one true science, in divine science, that every part so-called is the whole, that mind is the whole, that spirit is the whole. This takes us right back to what we saw the other day, that mind can only be mind because mind is spirit. Mind is soul, mind is principle, mind is life, truth, and love. That this is an inseparable, indivisible relationship. So I love that sense of the first and second records presenting to us something that is so fundamental to our world view, to the world view that is held today. They say shifting, that there is a shifting of scientific attention away from the traditional theme of analyzing parts towards new themes, such as the movement of the whole. So that instead of having a nature that is in pieces, or pieces of nature, that we have an awareness of the oneness of all things. You just listen with your spiritual tonality to what is going on, to any good report that comes along, any good series that comes along that's speaking about the general trends in outlook on our universe, on our world, on our environment, on everything that concerns us, and you will be able to hear the difference. Is it reductionist or is it holistic? Yeah. Well, so what do we do with this man now, this Adam man?
Where are we are we on a certain place value right now?
Yes, when we started, I think it was just before you came in, we said that we were at the point of spirit and had taken spirit as mind and just seen the creation of the Adam man as a mixing of parts and a mixture of parts and opposites to bring forth something that is called man. And so we were seeing that this is really a trend throughout the world, throughout the sciences and disciplines, that is being leavened by the light of divine science. And as it is leavened, that methodology is changing from reductionism to holism by really divine love. So divine love says, I just love to feel that divine love says to us, says to that sense of the Adam man, all right, this is your first sense of man. The first faint appearing. Isn't that something? The first faint appearing that there is something called man. That's what that is, that Adam man. It's a limited conception. It's made of the dust. It's earthy and earthly and DNA stuff, whatever the stuff of it is. It's a limited conception. It's a hypothesis of what man is. But I can adjust that. I can regulate that. I can fluctuate that. You see, through the homeoraisa, through the homeostasis, through my methods of correction, I can change your view of that man. I can lift your view of that man to the true man. Don't you love that?
Yeah.
Don't you love the sense that it's all right? That's what love would say, that everything is all right. Just go on, be true to your highest sense, follow your highest sense, and I'm correcting you. I, love, am correcting you. I give you all the experiences you need to change your view of that sense of man. So that's something that seemed to come out at the point of spirit as mind, and now we come to spirit as spirit. What do we have there? Let's take our epitome. Let's recall the overall epitome for spirit, that spirit imparts the understanding which distinguishes between the real and the unreal. And we've just seen that spirit's understanding separates spiritual ideas from human conceptions. Now, in spirit as spirit, this understanding, by distinguishing between the real and the unreal, brings the reality of all things to light. We're looking at that ordering principle of spirit. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. So we have the establishing of that firmament of spirit She says, Spirit imparts the understanding which uplifts consciousness and leads into all truth. Spiritual sense is the discernment of spiritual good. Understanding is the line of demarcation between the real and unreal. Spiritual understanding unfolds mind, life, truth, and love, and demonstrates the divine sense, giving the spiritual proof of the universe in Christian Science. How beautiful. This understanding is not intellectual, is not the result of scholarly attainments. See, it's not the result of working, every field, every scientist, everyone in every field working. That lifting up, that understanding that is coming in, breaking in, is from above, isn't it? It's from the true record of creation. It is the reality of all things brought to light. God's ideas reflect the immortal, unerring, and infinite. The mortal, erring, and finite are human beliefs, which apportion to themselves a task impossible for them, that of distinguishing between the false and the true. Objects utterly unlike the original do not reflect that original. Therefore, matter, not being the reflection of spirit, has no real entity. Understanding is a quality of God, a quality which separates Christian Science from supposition and makes truth final. Very beautiful. And in the second record, what do we find there? Recap our epitomes from the second record. The overall epitome: mingling spirit and matter creates evil beliefs. We've seen that the mingling of spirit and matter produces a mortal creation, an evil creation, and now material beliefs are dualistic. And the second record says, and out of the ground made the Lord God Jehovah to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. There is your tree of the knowledge of good and evil versus the tree of life. So that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, these trees come out of the ground, it says, out of nothingness, and yet we have in the midst of it the sense of the tree of life. It's a false sense again of God. The growing, you see, to grow every tree, and every tree being pleasant to the sight really has a touch of spirit as soul, as we will see later. So that tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the belief in both good and evil, the belief in both spirit and matter, she says, versus the tree of life in the midst of the garden, which stands for the idea of truth. Well, this is the first great flash of light, and it is indeed a flash of light that has really influxed the whole of mankind, this tree of life. The desire to know, that's what what seems to be an issue here with this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of life. And knowing, they say, is an ongoing creative act synonymous with the process of living itself. Think of that. The knowing, to want to know, is an ongoing creative act synonymous with the process of life itself, living itself. And that learning, which has to do with knowing, with knowledge, is a transformation in the system. Now, what we see in the second record is that there is a learning process going on. Did you ever think of what a wonder it is to be able to learn? That we learn continually? That this learning is transforming us? Transforming consciousness? Isn't that terrific? And did you know that every discipline, every field, every subject has a tree, a knowledge tree, a tree of knowledge for modeling all that is known in that field? This is what I think the tree of life is bringing in. It's a terrific ordering principle. That tree, that sense of a tree. That every field has a knowledge tree that classifies all the information in that field. It is a multi-leveled structure. It's a holistic structure. It's a structure of complexity. And you hear how the light of the divine is breaking in on the second record. In problem solving, how do they solve problems? What is one great way in which problems are solved? Cross-disciplinary, in many, many disciplines. What do they use? Decision trees. A decision tree. Don't you have it in the computers and in computer programming, what they call branching? That there's branching, that you have if, then. Is that would be one aspect of branching? What else, Chris? Is that a good example?
That's the best one. Yeah.
That's the best one. That's good. So that you have in a computer program, you continually come to a decision point. Just as every one of us throughout our lives has millions and millions of these decision points, which are called bifurcation points. Every day we make hundreds, probably more, decisions. Should I get up or should I stay in bed 5 minutes longer? Should I brush my teeth first? What kind of cereal am I going to have? Every moment, you might say, there's a decision-making process going on. This is an ordering, this requires an ordering principle to be at work. So, these decision trees, then, are also for modeling knowledge. You can see them in all the different fields. They are used in all the different fields. And you read in a decision tree, you read from the root to the through the trunk, to the branches, to the sub-branches, to the twigs, to the twiglets, to the leaves.
mind map. You can do that without a computer. You could take any given subject yourself, all alone, pick a subject, start it on a paper, and start from there and make your own mind map. You don't need a computer to do it.
Yes, yes, yeah. And you may see a tree. Sometimes these trees are sideways. Sometimes they show them sideways coming. Well, looking at me, coming out here, say, from the root through the trunk to the first branching, you see, and then the branching off of the branches to the smaller and smaller branches, to the twigs, all the way out to the individual leaves of that subject, or of the resolving of that, the question, that problem within that particular field. Or a tree may be upside down. You may see it upside down, in which case it looks like a hierarchy. It's a multi-leveled structure. And with these trees, with the ability to form these trees, comes the need to know how to prune them. That your tree is more efficient. It is more exact. It is more precise if you can prune it properly. If you know what is the extraneous information in it. So you don't just have a big bushy tree, but you're able to go through and say, no, I can take that out because that's covered by this branch. It's where you have overlapping information. You would take a branch out and select a branch that would cover that aspect, or that covers already that aspect. And so you have a pruning function. The tree is pruned back, and this reduces the error rate, they say. That as you prune that tree properly, the error goes out of it. Any sense, any possibility of making a mistake goes out of it. You know how we talk about experts, being an expert in a field. All that an expert is someone who has a very finely pruned tree. Their tree is pruned to the maximum.
Because then it controls its ordered growth, its ordered unfolding.
Yeah.
And that's a scientific method, a tremendous method of pruning. I mean, it takes a lot of know-how to do that.
Yes, it does. A lot of know-how, yes. Yeah.
And not only that, a finely pruned tree allows for more growth to go on and to be developed the right way without confusion of branching and all that.
Oh, how wonderful. We have a real expert here on what would you say, horticulture? Yeah, a horticulturist. But if you think think about the first time think about a task in your life that you now do at a fairly regular intervals, and think about the first time you did that task. The first time you did it, you did a lot of things that you didn't have to do. A lot of extra things, a lot of extraneous movements and activities, and that you, as you kept on doing that activity, kept on doing that endeavor, things dropped away, right? It became more streamlined. It became more, what would you say, expedient, or what? Efficient, yeah. This is the pruning of the tree. pruning and pruning the tree. I saw actually a diagram once of how an expert would do something versus how an ordinary person would do it. And the tree of the ordinary person was just filled in. It was just so bushy and you know, just dense, very, very dense, and as you say, muddled or cross-branched and so forth.
Usually just go zip over the top and take out all the necessary branches that you need up at the top too. I mean, yeah, no, seriously, when you ever watch the city come along and you have a beautiful tree and they come along and they crop it without thought of how it should be, don't let the branches go up to support
Yes.
properly, so you have a big branch with just a little.
Yes, yes, I do know that. Yeah, yeah. But the tree of the expert, when they showed the tree of the expert, was just a few crucial points. A branch here and all the way out to maybe 3 leaves out here, showing that very same task going on.
So I wonder if his tree looked like that from the very beginning, with his tree of that task, but then dense at one time and then pruned back.
Yes, I would think so. Definitely, definitely. Yeah. So I was thinking about this concept, this marvelous concept of a tree, and of this bifurcating and the forks and knowing how to prune that tree. And I thought, gosh, we have some wonderful trees. We have some great trees. 2 trees that we know, just right offhand. Would you see a tree here? A very obvious tree. What is it? In the model of being, we have the model of being. Do you see within the model of being a tree? Where is it?
Right, that's science is science.
Huh?
Science is science.
Science says science. You see a tree there? Yeah. And the whole thing is an upside down tree. See that? Pruned, maximally pruned. Tree of life.
So
Huh?
there's only one
Tree of life.
There's not 2.
There's only one tree of life, but it shows itself forth in many, many different ways.
But I mean, as the tree of good and evil is not the tree of good and evil. It's the tree
Yeah.
of life.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is the tree of life.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you want to have that.
The moment you shine the light on that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it's the tree of life. There's only one tree in the midst of the garden. John Dorley pruned the tree of the Bible. He pruned the tree of the Bible, and you find the results. You find his tree at the end. Say, if you take if you say, well, he pruned really the mainly looking at the first and second records of creation, and then, well, actually, the whole Bible. You see at the in his summary of Volume 1, that pruning, that tree, don't you? It's a summary. Everything is reduced. All of the extra verbiage is out of it. It's been reduced to epitomization. Max Kapler pruned the tree of the textbook. So you have the epitomes book. With the epitomes book, you really have 16 trees, don't you? Each chapter having a tree of life, or an individualization, a reflection of that tree of life. There is absolutely nothing extraneous there, just the the essence is there. Is this not an ordering principle? Is it not a wonder? Hmm? A garden, yes. Yeah, right.
It's a whole movement.
Yeah,
Carry the analogy further, the roots react to what's happening on top. So if you maintain the top of the tree, the roots stay in balance. And if your tree is overgrown, when you prune the top, it will slough roots underneath the ground as well. So you see you have the effect of what you do visibly is also being handled underneath the ground that you don't.
yes, that's terrific. That's terrific, yeah. Wonderful.
The root and offspring of David. Right. For each idea.
The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Yeah. Nature generally orders itself as a tree, in the pattern of a tree. Did you know that? It's a basic fractal pattern that's found throughout nature. Patterns of branching, patterns filled with bifurcation points. You don't see in nature squares and circles and triangles. You see patterns of branching. You see tree patterns, and these are found in all kinds of systems, the systems of waterways and rivers. Aha! Rivers, as we've seen in botany and biology and physiological systems and geological forms, in mental thinking processes, in intellectual and cognitive processes, are all formed and patterned as a tree.
Well, we even think of man that way.
Yes.
The trunk, and then your veins and arteries branching.
Yeah,
branching.
all of those systems have that form.
Sue?
I was thinking about Max Caffrey. He said that the Bible takes 3,000 pages, and Science and Health takes about 700 pages, and the chart takes 1 page.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's the point. Okay.